This is a classic that has been severely underestimated by the world. Only after watching this movie do you know what a tough guy is. He is the best movie of Oscar in 2000. At the battlefield. In the early morning of the European battlefield in Westland 180, a group of white horses pulled back a corpse. After the general saw it, he knew that a great war was inevitable. His name is Moose. He has been fighting outside for many years. It's not because he has an army of thousands of soldiers. It's because these people are willing to die for him. The opponent they are facing this time is the Japanese. In order to defeat these barbarians, Moose personally leads a team of cavalry to charge into the battlefield. He almost lost his life in the middle of the battle. In the end, they won the battle. The Roman King Caesar asked him in person, "What military merit do you want?" Moose looked around for a long time. At night, the king called Moose. He told him that he was going to pass the throne to him, because only he can save the rotten Rome. But Moose refused to accept it. "I need some time, sir." "Yes, by sunset, I hope you will have agreed." Then the king told the prince that he would not pass the throne to him, because he has no ability to manage this country. The prince heard it and cried bitterly, but he didn't want to lose the throne. He killed his father personally. Then he called Moose. He hoped he could be a capable helper, but Moose denied it without saying a word. Since he can't get it, he must destroy it. Moose didn't know that he had become the greatest threat to the new king. 4 guards rushed in to catch him. They pulled him to the wilderness to prepare for the execution. Before he died, he asked to be punished according to military law. As a result, faced with the last guard, this arrow hit his shoulder, but the opponent just turned the horse head. He just stabbed him in the head. Moose put down the sword and touched the wound. He should not die. He rode the horse all the way home. The horse ran away, and his arm was severely injured, but he didn't know that the prince had sent someone to his house. When he arrived, his wife and son had become 2 cold corpses. He cried to hold his wife's feet. He buried his wife and son in pain and passed out. When he woke up, he saw a strange African black man. It turned out that he was sold by these people to be a fighter. Once he entered the battlefield, there was almost no chance of survival. The slaves wore iron chains. They used a piece of rotten iron to fight the strong men in full armor. Before they went on the battlefield, someone peed, but no one knew that there was the strongest general in all of Rome among these slaves. Unexpectedly, the strong man was defeated by him. Because of his excellent performance, Moose was summoned by his master. He told Moose that as long as he became the first, he would be welcomed by the king and freed. After hearing this, Moose took off his armor. His eyes became extremely fierce. The opportunity to take revenge finally came. Not long after, Moose defeated all the fighters and became the #1 in people's hearts. No matter where he went, he was respected. As long as he won this game, he would be the first in the ranking. With the determination to take revenge, he defeated all his opponents. The next game will be held in the Roman battlefield. The king will personally go to the scene to watch. Moose brought the strongest fighter in Rome to the field, but he didn't expect that he would face an army this time. They used bows and spears to attack from a distance. The fighters in the center became torches. He couldn't fight with them at all. As the general, Moose soon thought of a way. He commanded his teammates to lie in ambush. As soon as the carriage approached, he used a spear to turn the wheel. Not long after, the situation turned upside down. Most of the carriages lost their attack. It was a terrible fight. Finally, Moose rode a white horse. He solved the last 2 carriages alone. All the audience didn't expect that the army, which represented Rome's strongest force, would lose like this. At this time, the new king felt that Moose was familiar, so he came down to meet him in person. Moose pretended to squat down and grabbed a sword. For this opportunity, he suffered a lot. Suddenly, a child rushed over. Moose recognized that he was the son of the new king's sister. He didn't want to kill people in front of his son. The king asked him to show his identity. Moose said his name was the Fighter. The king was not happy. "How dare you show your back to me? Slave, remove your helmet and tell me your name." After hearing him take off his helmet and turn around in front of tens of thousands of people, he loudly said all the crimes the king committed and personally killed the old king to get the throne. The army immediately went forward to surround him. But in this country that admires force, the winner will be respected. Tens of thousands of people shouted out loud that Moose was innocent. Faced with such public opinion, the king had to let go of Moose. At this time, the battleground remembered Moose's name. The king was determined to kill him. In the next battle, he invited Rome's strongest fighter. The battle officially began. Moose was constantly pushed back by his opponent. At this time, the ground opened a door for him. A big fat cat dug out. Fortunately, there was an iron chain tied to it. Otherwise, Moose was already in his stomach. The opponent deliberately forced him to the front of the trap. The second big fat cat lay behind Moose. Fortunately, he used the shield to beat him smartly. He just took down the strongman's weapon. There was another one behind him. He put him heavily under his body. The strongman seized the opportunity to stab him. Moose picked up the shield and smashed it directly on the strongman's face. And then another one. Rome's strongest fighter was no different. Moose pulled out his axe and opened the strongman's mask. The audience shouted and killed the loser, but he hesitated and chose to throw the axe away. To defeat the king fairly, he had to win more people's hearts first. The king knew his intention. Moose held back his inner impulse and bowed to him. He turned around and left. Because the time was not ripe yet, he had to learn to win people's hearts over and over again. Now, Moose had become the king in the hearts of the people. The common people all performed his stage play. Now the king is worthless in the hearts of the people. Members of the parliament found Moose and hoped that he could start a revolution. As long as Moose gave the order, the army he once commanded would come to fight immediately. This night, Moose escaped from prison with with everyone's help. He wanted to meet the army first. Unexpectedly, he was ambushed halfway. It turned out that all this was the king's plan. He arrested him for treason, then he defeated Moose in the arena. Before the game, the king found Moose and stabbed him with a poisonous dagger. Then he put on his armor and didn't let the audience find the wound. As long as he won this game, he could win people's hearts again. Not long after, the poison effect began to take effect. He was accidentally stabbed. The king was overconfident. Moose grabbed the opportunity and stabbed him in the shoulder. The king was angry. He threw out the dagger and stabbed Moose. But in Moose's eyes, his attack was exposed. He grabbed the opportunity and punched him. The king was covered in blood. Finally, Moose tried his best to point the dagger at the king. In this way, he won the last victory. Before he died, he conveyed the old king's last wish. Let Rome restore absolute democracy. At the last moment before he lost consciousness, the familiar face appeared in front of him. Maybe only death can reunite their family.